And now I want to welcome Simone Titus. Welcome, Simone. We are now at the phase of our virtual reality and augmented reality phase. And like I said yesterday, Simone, on the one hand, we have this wonderful things happening, initiatives starting. And on the other hand, we have students that's still engaged in our basic literacy skills course. So yes, we have an array of students on a continuum, and we continue to learn. But thank you for doing this while you are on your sabbatical, and good luck with further exploration.
Thanks, Juliet. Can I just confirm you can hear me and see my screen?
Yes, we can, Simone.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I am not a teacher. I am a learning and teaching specialist in the Faculty of Community and Health Sciences. And so as a caveat, I'd just like to say that I'm not a computer science engineer. I do not do any coding. I do not do any programming. I'm an educationist. And so I'm interested in learning and teaching, and not so much interested in what technology often looks like, but what it can do. And so I'm interested in the design. And so currently I'm collaborating with the Department of Computer Science. We are busy designing a 3D walk of our clinical facilities or our clinical skills labs at our Bellville campus in the CHS faculty. So what I'm going to be presenting to you today is some of my work on exploring what first-year students understand by virtual reality and augmented reality. And it's part of a larger project that started this year and sort of got halted as a result of COVID, but we managed to engage some of our students. So what is augmented and virtual reality? Well, augmented reality, as you can see on some of the pictures that is on the screen at the moment, it uses a headset or a smartphone to overlay certain images and other content into your physical world. So in other words, it adds digital artifacts like a skeleton, a heart, a spider, any kind of artifact into your own world using your camera and a screen or a smartphone and a tablet, where these models are superimposed into the real world. So examples of this is Snapchat, Pokemon Go, Google Expeditions, and in my space, I use the Eon XR technology or the AVR platforms to do that. But also I often use with younger children is to use Google Expeditions to teach things like exoskeletons or whatever the case might be. Virtual reality, on the other hand, is more immersive than augmented reality because this is where the user actually dons a headset and interacts entirely with a computer-generated environment. This hardware is usually quite expensive, but there are lower economic alternatives like a Google Cardboard that uses your cell phone, as well as the glasses that is provided by Eon. So when you are immersed in a virtual reality space, all your senses are used, sight, hearing, motions, and you're fully immersed in a synthetic environment that mimics properties of a real world in high resolution, usually refreshes quite well if you do have a good headset. So why would we want to use virtual reality in health professions education? Well, virtual reality and augmented reality are currently trending in medical education. It may lead to increased student engagement, interactivity, and enjoyment. And in medical and health science students, they need to gain many skills and a vast array of knowledge throughout their time at university to become competent practitioners. And in this, anatomy in particular is one of the cornerstones of health education. And so AR and VR are deemed to be acceptable tools to reach some of the outcomes required by health science students. And so without proper understanding of anatomy and physiology, regardless of the area of healthcare or other social welfare professions, Practitioners would then be able to perform investigations effectively as they require knowledge of organs, of tissues, and precise locations. So the kinanthropometry around the anatomy, the structure, function, and location. And so the use of technologies such as augmented reality and virtual reality has the potential to change the way people engage and interact with learning material, very much in a sort of, I want to say, post-humanist approach. And so within the VR and AR space, there's an integration of the digital technologies and the physical world to create virtual simulations of physical spaces. And so there are a number of benefits of the use of AR and VR in health professions education. So the EduCore's Horizon Report of 2019 indicated that biology or anatomy students can develop scientific literacy, problem-solving skills, and content knowledge by interacting with simulated objects. So furthermore, these technologies are very well suited for experiential learning or experiential learning education practices, because through simulations and 360 video, virtual reality can actually enable users to visit spaces and places that they might otherwise not be able to access, such as the human body. So virtual reality therefore enables users to do things that are impossible in the physical world. And as such, they're able to manipulate entire environments or navigate inside veins or arteries without the risk to a real patient. So AVR, or augmented and virtual reality, also provides rich contextual learning for health professions students in aid of achieving some of the core competencies, such as decision making. If used correctly, it can foster teamwork and creative adaptation of other resources to address some of the local health priorities. So in trying to achieve some of our health outcomes. The other benefit is that it provides opportunities for more authentic learning, and it appeals to multiple learning styles for some students who are visual, some students are auditory, some students who prefer text, because it provides students with more personalized and explorative learning experience. And lastly, the patient safety is safeguarded, because if mistakes are made during skills training in AR, it can just be repeated. Similar to the Learning Science UK, where if a student is doing an experiment using a pipette, but in the virtual space, they can do the experiment multiple times. There's a saving on resources, on materials, and all of those things. So when we look at, for example, Classroom 1.0, text, symbols, books were crucial forms of communication, and it doesn't mean that these are no longer important. They are, but neuroscience research is also showing us at the moment that 3D imaging, or the use of three-dimensional objects, is crucial for understanding things like the human body and its organs, molecular structures, and other design artifacts. And so when I looked at our first year students, all I wanted to do at this point was to co-construct the learning environment with the students. And so what I'm going to be presenting to you is just the first step in terms of what are students' perceptions and what are their understanding of AR and VR. And so really this is just a sort of baseline of students in the CHS faculty. 133 students responded to a questionnaire from nursing, sport, recreation and exercise science, occupational therapy, dietetics, physiotherapy, and social work. So this is what they were saying. Very often we make assumptions about students' understanding and the fact that they might be familiar with technology. However, as can be seen in terms of both AR and VR, some of this, not very many students are even aware of AR or VR, or they are just slightly aware. So they know a little bit about it, but very few of them actually make use of virtual reality and augmented reality. Because they are first year, I also asked them about, their prior experience. So have they used it in school, or elsewhere before university, and the majority of them said no, they have not. And for educational purposes, even less of them said they've never used, even more of them have indicated that they've never used AR or VR for education purposes. So that already tells us that we have a huge opportunity here to expose students to these types of technologies. In terms of anatomy and physiology, which is the core use of my study, is not many students have actually used AR or VR for the purposes of physiology. However, a large percentage of students are saying it would be a very, very useful tool for them to learn anatomy and physiology. And then lastly, students actually indicated that they believe that AR or VR would be very useful for interprofessional education. And so about close to 70% of students said that it would be useful for them to work across professions in a AR or VR space. So some of the responses indicate that one student was saying that one can use AR or VR spaces to create scenarios that can be solved by using knowledge that comes from interprofessional teamwork. Now, this speaks to interprofessional core competencies as it is as published by the World Health Organization. They're also saying that we can meet in a virtual reality setting with people from all over the world with different degrees and share our knowledge in a way unlike before and even demonstrate what we know. So it speaks to collaborative practices. It speaks to the idea of having maker spaces where students are able to collaborate in teams. I'm just going to go through this very, very quickly. Many students have tried or tested AR or VR, usually at shopping centers for fun or for gaming and with friends at home. However, some of them do have concerns with regards to AR or VR, and one of the biggest concerns for them was that it might be expensive and difficult to implement. And some of them actually had big concerns around headaches or brain damage, and it came across in some of the comments that they gave with regard to what would be positive or what would be negative in terms of using AR or VR in health professions education. And so just sort of, if I can just take one quote on each side, when we look at the negative, some of the students were saying that it might be too expensive and it could create isolation from people, especially in terms of the social connectivity, but also they were worried about the health implications. And so that is something that we need to consider ethically when we are conducting research using AR and VR. But I think what is quite, the positives seem to outweigh the negatives, because many students are saying it would allow them to think about and visualize some of the applications or assets that they would not ordinarily see. And it would be a good place for them to practice certain therapies before they actually do it on real patients. There's just some concluding thoughts and my way forward. We currently will be building some anatomy and physiology app lessons using the EON XR platform. This is sort of what it looks like, and we can do it with the entire human body. And so I think that, our claims that this type of technology is not new to our students is refuted, because not many of our students are actually familiar with this. However, they may experience more of this when they enter the workforce. So we should take this opportunity to prepare them, because the exact impact of the fourth industrial revolution in health science education in South Africa and society at large is still sort of unknown. And thus there's a need for us in higher education institutions to respond to some of the initiatives that might affect social change in the health science sector. And lastly, I think it's a good opportunity for us at UWC to strategically position ourselves in terms of our curricula for health science education, because it may allow students to function more at a higher level as 21st century digital citizens. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you so much. Colleagues, as you can see, Simone has reminded us that we need to think about the definitions of augmented and virtual realities. Our students are not familiar with this yet, but watch this space. She's doing wonderful work, and we are getting into the space of AR and VR, and we're going to expose our staff and students more. So thank you to Simone for initiating this.